It's 8 o'clock. This is the UK Tonight. I'm Mark Austin, live at Buckingham Palace this evening following the arrest of Andrew Mountbatten-Windsor. Breaking news in the past hour, Andrew pictured leaving a police station in Norfolk following hours of questioning. The former prince was detained this morning when police visited him at his new home on the Sandringham estate. Officers searched that property as well as his former home in Windsor on what is Andrew's 66th birthday.
Good afternoon.
What's your reaction to your brother's arrest, sir? Sir, what's your reaction to your brother's arrest?
Also questions for the King following his brother's arrest. The palace was not informed in advance, but the King says the law must take its course. And amid fresh calls for Andrew to cooperate with the Epstein investigation in the US, Virginia Giuffre's family say their hearts have been lifted by his arrest. On the face of it, it was a routine statement from the police. A man in his 60s from Norfolk arrested on suspicion of misconduct in public office. In reality, it signalled the first time in modern history that a member of the royal family had been taken into police custody. Andrew Mountbatten-Windsor was arrested this morning at his new home on the Sandringham estate on his 66th birthday, with searches also carried out at his former home in Windsor. It's understood the King was not informed of the arrest in advance, but he has thrown his support behind the police, saying clearly the law must take its course. In the past hour, Andrew left police custody, a photographer capturing this, really quite extraordinary image of the former prince in the back of a car. He was questioned at Aylsham police station, around an hour away from his home at Sandringham. In a statement, Thames Valley Police said the arrested man has now been released under investigation. We can also confirm that our searches in Norfolk have now concluded. Coming up, we'll discuss the police operation in Norfolk and the processes Andrew will now be subject to, and we'll find out what the implications are for the wider royal family. But first, our royal correspondent Rhiannon Mills reports on a truly momentous day.
Andrew Mountbatten-Windsor photographed in the back of a car leaving a police station in Norfolk, as Thames Valley Police confirmed that a man arrested in his 60s had been released under investigation. The unmarked police cars were seen on the Sandringham estate with no advance warning for the King or the wider palace that his brother was going to be arrested. Thames Valley Police then releasing their statement confirming they were questioning a man in his 60s and searching properties in Norfolk and Berkshire. Not naming him, but it was clear it was Andrew on the day he marks his 66th birthday. The first senior royal in modern history to be arrested, questioned on suspicion of misconduct in public office. It comes after police had been looking at emails from the latest Epstein files and allegations that Andrew, during his time as trade envoy, may have passed on confidential details to the convicted paedophile and other business contacts. Andrew has always denied any wrongdoing.
Really, what it boils down to is the question of whether the police have evidence that Andrew Mountbatten-Windsor willfully misconducted himself as a trade envoy to such a degree as to amount to an abuse of the public's trust in him. Now, that's a matter of judgment. It's a matter of evidence. It depends on what evidence the police may have.
Particularly painful for the royal family because it goes right to the heart of their public service. A statement from the King came quickly, saying, "I have learned with deepest concern the news about Andrew Mountbatten-Windsor and suspicion of misconduct in public office. What now follows is the full, fair and proper process. They have our full and wholehearted support and cooperation. Let me state clearly, the law must take its course. Meanwhile, my family and I will continue in our duty and service to you all."
Are you concerned about Andrew's arrest, Your Majesty?
Our Hours later, we saw that with both the Queen and King out on separate engagements, aware the questions may come.
What's your reaction to your brother's arrest, sir?
But it's through carrying on with their duties that they continue to try to distance themselves from Andrew. This is an institution that really isn't that reactive. They won't be forced into saying things. But in this case, they knew that there was no alternative. They had to respond because whatever happens around Andrew's arrest, whatever the outcome may be, it does still raise serious questions about trust and also the wider public role of the monarchy. The King and the Palace now hoping the statement shows they are not ignoring the enormity of it all and open to scrutiny in a way that we have never seen before. Rhiannon Mills, Sky News at Buckingham Palace.
And Rhiannon is with me now. I mean, where to start? I think we should start with that image of the former prince leaving a police station after a day of questioning. That will haunt the royal family.
It's an awful photograph, and actually you look at his face and he looks fairly haunted by the experience. Generally, look, they are a family used to having their photographs taken as they're driving around in cars, and he is, as you can see, I suspect trying to hide away from the photographers as much as possible. This will have come as a huge blow for him today. The first time, it's worth stressing that he has had to formally speak to any authorities regarding his relationship with Jeffrey Epstein, and just the most extraordinary day. It is unprecedented, as you said earlier, the first member of the royal family, senior member of the royal family, to be arrested in modern history. And on that incredibly serious charge, which runs right to the heart of what the royal family is meant to be all about, that charge of misconduct in a public office. And yeah, he's clearly had what looks like an arduous day of being questioned at Elsham Police Station, which is around 50 minutes away from where he now lives, close to Wolferton on the Sandringham estate.
Right, well, that was the photograph that has kind of ended the day for Andrew. The photographs that began the day were those detectives rocking up at his property in Sandringham to arrest him.
Just unbelievable. And look, we've talked about this story for a very long time. 15 years this has been there as a spectre over the royal family in terms of that relationship between Andrew and Jeffrey Epstein. And yet now to see police officers on the Sandringham estate and on the Windsor estate, not there to protect members of the royal family, but instead there to gather evidence in terms of building up their case. Of course, it's worth repeating that the whole reason they're there is because of these allegations that it was during his time as a UK trade envoy that he's now been accused of handing over confidential documents to the likes of Jeffrey Epstein, but also potentially other business associates. It has to be said, though, he has vehemently denied any wrongdoing. But also, I think what's been interesting over the last week is it has felt like we've been getting closer and closer to this moment. Last week, Thames Valley Police saying that they were assessing whether or not they'd be able to launch an investigation, talking to the Crown Prosecution Service. And today we've clearly seen the results of those conversations where they said, yeah, you can now push forward with an investigation. You have enough to do that.
And what about the impact that this picture and the events of today will have on his brother, the King?
Look, I'm not saying this out of any kind of sympathy for the royal family, but it is important for us to remember, as we are talking about the reputational damage on this institution, this is as much about a family crisis. You have a monarch who is still undergoing cancer treatment, the strain that it must be putting on him. But ultimately, just like his mother, Queen Elizabeth II, he has had to weigh up what comes first, family or the institution. And at this moment of peril, in a way, he has ultimately had to decide, as head of state, it's the monarchy that has to come first. And that is why we saw actually quite a swift statement from the King. I've covered many of these stories before, and you're kind of sat there waiting hour after hour. When are they going to respond? They are not a reactive institution. They will not be bounced into making public pronouncements. But they knew today that they had to make a response. And what they also wanted to do, and we've spoken about this as the hours have gone on, we've seen today that he has not been treated any differently from anybody else who may be facing this kind of investigation. It's so interesting, but also that has been reiterated from his own family, from his own brother, saying, we will stand by the police forces as they investigate these crimes. We will help with that. And ultimately, we don't want him to be treated differently. But yeah, that is an awful image to end the evening on what has been a horrific day for the royal family. Right, look, we've got a minute left. Will the King have to do more? Do you think he'll be forced to do more? Do you think he'll have to make some sort of statement on television or whatever? So that's what everyone keeps pushing for, is why have we not seen him on camera? Why have we not seen the whites of his eyes saying, look, I feel some responsibility for this, I'm kind of carrying this forward as a leader. I don't think we are going to see that, and I think the fact that you've now had this investigation launched, it in a way diminishes the likelihood of that happening even further. They've been really conscious of making sure that they don't prejudice any kind of investigations as they happen. They want to assist in a way, but also they don't want police forces or any other authorities to think, well, we can't push forward on this one because the difficult position it puts the King in. So no, I cannot see him appearing on television, no matter how loud the noise gets. People, of course, though, Andrew is the one being questioned, but yeah, it does open up some really difficult potential questions for the royal family more widely. What was known? When was it known? Why was it not put forward to authorities to probe and look into? But also, look, when we talk about the wider Epstein issue, many other powerful individuals also with questions to answer, and authorities as well. Why has it only come to this point for them to push forward on this? OK, Rhiannon, thank you very much. Let's go straight up to Norfolk. Shaman Freeman-Powell is at Sandringham this evening. We'll talk soon to Amelia Harper in Windsor. But Shaman, I'm being told in my ear that we understand Andrew has now arrived back in Sandringham.
Yeah, that's right. Sky News does understand that he has arrived back in Sandringham just moments ago, actually, not using this entrance, but we believe using an entrance which is just around the corner. It comes after he was photographed leaving a police station, that's the Elsham police station, around 7 p.m. earlier. We've seen photographs of Andrew Mountbatten-Windsor in a vehicle, not very flattering photographs, I might add. He seems to be leaning down in the back of that vehicle, looking as though he was trying to avoid being captured by lots of the photographers that have been at those police stations, and also here on the Wood Farm estate, as well as over Royal Lodge. Now, in the last few moments, we've also had a statement from Police, which I can share with you now. With the statement, it says that Thames Valley Police is able to provide an update in relation to an investigation into the offence of misconduct in public office. It says on Thursday we arrested a man in his 60s from Norfolk on suspicion of misconduct in public office. Now, earlier I told you that in the statement provided by Police, they crucially did not name Andrew Mountbatten-Windsor, but it didn't take much for the media to put two and two together. A man in his 60s living in Norfolk was how he was described, and of course we know Andrew Mountbatten turned 66 today, and you can see the level of media that is at this address in Norfolk. Now that statement continues. It says the arrested man has now been released under investigation. We can also confirm that our searches in Norfolk have now concluded. Now, judging from that statement, it does seem that Andrew Mountbatten-Windsor may have been released without charge, but that has not been confirmed by Thames Valley Police. That was a very short statement in that update, and it comes after it was here at around 8 a.m. this morning that we believe Andrew Mountbatten-Windsor was arrested.
Indeed, I think we're about to see pictures of Andrew arriving back at Sandringham, but we'll see those in just a moment. Let's go to Amelia Harper in Windsor. And of course, Amelia, Royal Lodge was his home, Andrew's home, for some considerable time. Give us a sense of what's been going on there today.
Well, today, Mark, we've had this kind of weird situation, frankly, where we know that police have been inside Royal Lodge conducting their searches. As we heard there as well, they have also been at the Sandringham estate as part of this investigation. But on the outside, members of the public, dog walkers, cyclists, etc., have been able to go in and out of the gates behind me. And then, you know, further inside, you've got police conducting those searches. And we've had an update, as we heard there, from Shaman, but we've got a bit more detail about what's been happening here. They have said that the searches here at Royal Lodge continue, and they have, as we heard now, concluded in Sandringham. As you said, this was a former residence of Andrew for 20 years. This is somewhere that he lived and he knew well. He, under the cover of darkness, was taken out of this residence and moved to an area on the Sandringham estate just earlier this month. And really, since all of these allegations around the Epstein files and Andrew's alleged links to those allegations have come out, we haven't really seen him a lot in public, although he was pictured here on horseback a little bit earlier this month. But of course, where are we now? We now know that Andrew is back at Sandringham, but today we have had those searches from police been very much kind of gathering pace. We understand that in advance of his arrest, the Home Office was made aware. That arrest, of course, happening at Sandringham at 8 o'clock this morning. Of course, Andrew and his brother, the King, will not have been told. There will have been no advance warning. And as we heard there from Rhiannon, it is very unlikely that he will have received any form of special treatment at all. This fundamentally today is an unprecedented day. This is the first time in modern history that a serving sort of senior royal has been arrested. The last time the sibling of a monarch was arrested was back in 1554, Mark.
Amelia, thank you very much indeed. Amelia saying there that we know Andrew is now back at Sandringham, and we know that because we have a picture of Andrew's car arriving back at his Sandringham house. It is brief, it is dark, but that is Andrew arriving back at his home in Sandringham. Now, Andrew's arrest comes after he was mentioned repeatedly in the Epstein files. Millions of emails, documents, photos and videos were released last month, prompting serious questions about the former Duke of York's relationship with the paedophile financier. Our data and forensics correspondent, Tom Cheshire, has been looking at the files.
It was the latest release of the Epstein files, 3.5 million of them, that piled the pressure onto Andrew. Now he has been arrested. And they contain embarrassing documents, photos like this of him on all fours at an undisclosed location. But the police investigation doesn't appear to be about his interactions with Virginia Jeffrey or any potential allegations of sexual abuse. Allegations Andrew has always strongly denied. Instead, it's his time as a trade envoy, an official position that is under scrutiny. The timeline here is really important, so let's start with that. It was back in September 2001 that Andrew was appointed trade envoy. In June 2008, his friend Jeffrey Epstein was convicted in Florida for procuring child prostitution. Just over a year later, Epstein was released from prison. In December 2010, Andrew visited Jeffrey Epstein in New York. In 2019, he said that this is when he broke off contact with him. In February 2011, Andrew continues to email Epstein, and we'll come back to this. In July 2011, Andrew was forced to quit his trade envoy role. April 2015, and allegations against Andrew emerge in court documents regarding Virginia Jeffrey. And in February this year, police started assessing claims over his links with Jeffrey Epstein. Now, the latest files appear to show correspondence between Epstein and Andrew when the latter was trade envoy on non-personal business. So let's start with this email. It's from November 2010, and what it is an aide forwarding to the Duke of York attached reports for Vietnam, Singapore, Hong Kong and Shenzhen in relation to your recent visit to Southeast Asia. That was as trade envoy. 5 minutes later, the Duke, as he was known back then, forwards that on to Jeffrey Epstein. There's another one too. This is about Afghanistan. It's also 2010. It's sent in December, and it's from Andrew directly to Jeffrey Epstein himself. And he says, attached is a confidential brief produced by the Provincial Reconstruction Team in Helmand Province. That's in Afghanistan. He sends that directly to Epstein and says, I'm going to offer this elsewhere in my network, including Abu Dhabi, but would be very interested in your comments. Then there's this email from Andrew again to Jeffrey Epstein. Now, the important thing here is the date, February the 9th, 2011. That is after when Andrew had originally said he ended his relationship with Epstein, but it's also when he's still a trade envoy, that official position. The contents of these emails are just fragments of events, and we don't know the specifics of the allegations being investigated. Again, this all appears to have taken place while Andrew was trade envoy, an official position. He has denied all wrongdoing, and it is now the subject of a police investigation.
Tom Cheshire there. Joining me now is the legal commentator Joshua Rosenberg. Good evening. Thanks for being with us. So he has been arrested. He's left the police station this evening. What is the process now, Joshua?
The process now is to watch and wait, and he may well have to wait for a very long time. It's no surprise that he's not been charged. I don't know what happened in the police station, but he will have been questioned. I don't suppose he will have told the police very much. He may have had a lawyer with him. The lawyer may have advised him that he should say no comment until he knows what information the police have. So there's no reason to keep him any longer because, as you've been reporting, the police have completed their search of his home in Norfolk, so he's safe to go back there. Anything that they may have found there has been taken away, and there's no suggestion that he could hide anything that's there. So the day's activities are over, but the police work really starts now when they have to look at all the documents, see what they can find out from the authorities, from the government, from the palace, see what records they can find from official sources, then take advice from the Crown Prosecution Service, and finally decide whether they have enough evidence to bring charges. That could take months, and it could be years before this is resolved.
So a long process. I mean, he had a haunted look on his face as he left the police station. Are you surprised that he has been treated like a, run-of-the-mill suspect rather than a member of the royal family?
I think the police are under an obligation to treat him properly, but not give him any better treatment than anybody else. I think people would be concerned if he was treated differently. They obviously have looked after him. He did look haunted, as you would have if you were disturbed quite early in the morning and taken off to a police station, questioned, something that he's never experienced before in his 66 years. And he was clearly, it seemed to me, trying to keep his head down so he wouldn't be photographed, so we wouldn't have that dramatic picture of him looking tense and with the flashlights giving him a very strange look off the back of his eyes. So it's obviously a very sensitive time for him, but I'm not surprised that he hasn't been detained any longer. As I say, it's really now for the police to start their work, and he has to talk to his lawyers, see what he can find out about their investigations and decide what to do.
And this alleged crime that he is being questioned about, misconduct in public office, tell us about that.
This is what the lawyers call a common law offence, meaning one that's been developed by the judges over many years. It's not been created by Parliament. That's why there's no maximum penalty. The maximum is actually life imprisonment, not that there's any suggestion that you would get anything as severe as that if you were convicted of it. It's often used against police officers, against prison officers, sometimes against ministers who misbehave in their work. The elements of it are that it's committed by a public officer, whatever that may mean, but it would, I suppose, include a trade envoy, acting as such, so acting as that envoy, who willfully neglects to perform his duty or willfully misconducts himself to such a degree as to amount to an abuse of the public's trust in the office holder without reasonable excuse or justification. So that's what it boils down to, somebody who's willfully misconducted himself to such a degree as to amount to an abuse of the public's trust in him.
Yeah, well, I'm interested, you say trade envoy would be public office. I mean, that would be the first hurdle they've got to get over, I suppose.
That's right. And they've got to look at how this phrase, public officer, has been interpreted in past cases. Now, that's not a particularly easy thing to do. That's why, because this is such a vague and slightly difficult to define offence, or at least that's how it seems to many of us, that the government is replacing it with a new statutory offence. That's not yet been passed by Parliament, and it wouldn't apply to past events. But that's why they've decided to try to replace this common law offence. There are all sorts of arguments that could be put. Is it an abuse of the public's trust? Well, was it a neglect to perform his duty, or was he perfectly entitled to do what he's alleged to have done, which is to talk to people in order to improve the trading position of the United Kingdom, as he would put it? It's a very tricky offence, even though when I said that to the Director of Public Prosecutions, who gave us a briefing last week, he said it was perfectly clear the elements were laid down by the courts, and he was perfectly comfortable with the idea of giving advice to the police on that particular offence.
And just finally, practically and procedurally, does anything change because he is a member of the royal family?
No, I don't think so. The only person who would be above the law, as it were, is his brother, the king. But the fact that he happens to be a member of the royal family does not exempt him from the law, doesn't give him any immunities, and you would expect to find that the police had treated him in the same way as anybody else. I'm sure they treated him with courtesy, and I'm sure there were senior officers involved, but nevertheless, this is exactly what you would expect: an arrest early in the morning, questioning in the police station, released by the police to await further developments.
Joshua, thank you very much indeed for coming on the programme. Right, we're live at Buckingham Palace following the arrest of Andrew Mountbatten-Windsor on suspicion of misconduct in public office. The King's brother was detained at his home on the Sandringham estate this morning and taken to a police station around an hour away for questioning. He's since been released. To discuss the police operation this morning and what kind of a day Andrew will have had in police custody, I'm joined by our police commentator Graham Wetone. Good evening, Graham. And let's just go back to this morning. What would the police have done, and how would they have prepared for that?
I would imagine the officers on the actual search were probably called in about 4 o'clock in the morning. So a very early start. This was probably run under what we call a confidential operation, or COMFIOP for short. So they'd have been told to come in for a COMFIOP, probably told they were going to conduct a search and maybe an arrest at an address somewhere. It's highly likely they were not told the full details in that initial briefing. It could have been they were then drove to a staging area in convoy and were then told the actual target, the target premises and the subject of the arrest. But it would have been kept very confidential this morning, possibly even getting the officers to surrender their mobile phones, their personal mobile phones. So they would keep it very tight. No one would know the information apart from the officer leading the search, and then carry out the search itself. So once they get to the premises, and we saw, I think, around 8 officers and a number of vehicles, but you need that many people to control and manage the premises you're searching, and not just the individual you're arresting.
And we'll talk about the search in just a moment, but during the day, how would they have dealt with him under questioning? Would he have been in a cell? What would have been going on?
It had been booked in as normal, so presented to the custody officer, a role I used to perform in the police. So the custody officer would then authorise his detention after the grounds for the arrest were given by the arresting officer. His rights would then be read out to him, explained to him. He's got rights to solicitor, the right to have someone informed he's been arrested. Possibly then they'd have taken fingerprints and photographed. They now do that sometimes when we first put people in. Then placed into a cell after being searched. So things like belt, tie, shoelaces taken off him, personal property removed, so wallets, phones, keys, anything like that would have been taken off him. Then likely to have been placed in a cell pending the arrival of his legal representative, if he had one nominated, or the duty solicitor if he didn't. Once he's in the cell, wait for his legal rep to turn up. Then they get time for a private consultation, and then the interviewing investigating officers would have taken him out of the cell and into an interview room. And that interview would have been recorded, probably on video, with his legal representative. And the option at that point is for him either to answer the questions put to him or even present a prepared statement he may have prepared with his legal representative. But either way, the investigating officers would have gone through some questions with him and given him the opportunity to put forward his initial account of the points they wanted to clarify with him.
So if that is what happened, the fact that he is a member of the royal family would basically have counted for nothing.
No, not at all. Not in my experience, no. He'd been treated as a detained person, albeit, you know, a very well-known person. I'd imagine that the senior ranks at the police station would have probably kept an overview of the detention while he was there. But the responsibility for him would sit as it would with every other person, with the custody officer. He'd been dealt with by the interviewing officers as every other person would be. But I'd imagine there'd have been some sort of overview by the senior investigating officers of what was going on during the day.
And the searches, let's talk about what have been going on at these properties. What would they have been looking for? Presumably they would have, you know, been taking away computers, mobile phones. They want to look at his emails, his WhatsApps, his messages. I mean, it's all pretty humiliating stuff.
Yeah, it is, and it would have been a complete and full thorough search of the property, which is why they had about, I think it was about 8 officers there. So you have one officer who's in charge of the search. You'd have someone nominated as the exhibits officer to actually make sure you document and record anything that is seized on the property. So a full description of it, the officer that found it, where they found it, the time they found it, and then you have a number of other officers literally methodically searching each room as they go around. They would have been looking for any items that's got like either emails, documents, paperwork, anything that related to the offence in question, misconduct in public office, and probably relating to his time as a trade envoy.
And now Joshua Rosenberg was talking about this, but what will the police be doing now? I mean, these are hard yards now. The real investigation gets underway, and it could be quite a long one.
Yeah, potentially. The arrest has given them the opportunity to put some initial questions to him during an interview while he's been legally represented. But at that point, he couldn't leave the police station, which is why I think the arrest was carried out. The other option would have been to get him to come in for what's termed a voluntary interview. But at that point, you're told you're not under arrest and you're free to leave at any point. So I think they took the option of making the arrest. So he has to stay at the police station, go through the formal and recorded interview. Now they start going through the answers they've been given to questions, if he answered any questions, or a prepared statement, if that was the option. But literally going through any documentation, evidence they've now gathered, whether it supports their initial findings or whether it leads them elsewhere. The officers will literally just follow where the evidence takes them now, be it individuals, documents or places.
OK, Graham, thank you very much indeed. Very interesting. Thanks for coming on.
Thank you.
Right, still to come on the UK Tonight. Continuing coverage of the arrest of Andrew Mountbatten-Windsor and the potential fallout for the rest of his family.
The best thing about being a Sky News journalist?
They call him the king of the jungle.
Being a Sky News journalist.
Yusra Al-Baghir has this report.
And this is what's left of it.
As a woman of colour, how did the Harris campaign speak to you?
People risk their lives to speak to us for this report.
Mr. Zuma, Sky News. We're trying to see as much as we can.
Good evening. You're watching Sky News with continuing coverage of the arrest of Andrew Mountbatten-Windsor. The King's brother is effectively no longer a royal after he was stripped of his right to be a prince and his dukedom late last year, but he remains in the line of succession. He's currently 8th in line to the throne. Andrew's family have distanced themselves from him, but the monarchy continues to be dogged by allegations about his conduct, and royal commentator Alistair Bruce has described today's arrest as the worst possible thing that could happen to the Crown. Well, I'm joined now by the Daily Mail writer, Robert Hardman, author too of Charles III, The Inside Story. Robert, thank you very much for being with us. And let's begin with the King. What will be going through his mind tonight?
Well, good evening, Mark. Yes, I think he will be in that strange position that monarchs are, of being both a human being, a brother, and also being monarch, being sovereign. And his first duty is to the monarchy, to the institution, and family considerations come next. I mean, let's cast our minds back just a few months to when he took that incredibly then severe decision to strip his brother of all his titles and all his honours and kick him out of his house and send him into internal exile. I mean, that surprised a lot of us when that happened. I think now we realise that that was quite a prescient move. Yeah, for the monarchy, they are, you know, they're tied to Andrew. There's very little they can do. There are a few things still left for the King to do, but he can't do them now that a sort of legal process is underway, because it would look very much as though he was possibly interfering with that. He is the head of the judiciary, and so he really does have to stand back now and leave it to the police to take this on, if you like. We're not going to be hearing daily updates, daily statements from the palace for some time. They've just got to get on with royal life as we know it.
Yeah, and given those limitations that you've just mentioned, how then will he be trying? How will the King be trying to push on through this, you know, in the short term?
Well, I mean, in the short term, it really will be a case of sort of keep calm, carry on. I mean, you know, that we have now seen this sort of tendency where wherever the King goes, you know, you'll get the odd heckler. I mean, 95, 98% of the crowd are all cheering and clapping. But I mean, whenever you get a heckler or a shouter, that's going to make headlines. I mean, that's a sort of occupational hazard. He is used to that. I mean, you know, the royal family have been through these crises before. You know, you and I are long enough in the tooth to remember back to the 90s when there were evenings like, I mean, I remember the night of Diana's Panorama interview, and people were talking about sort of serious existential threat to the monarchy. Doesn't quite feel like an existential threat to the monarchy, because we are talking about someone who is 8th in line to the throne. I suspect when all this is over, just remember the King can't do anything while legal process is underway, but when it's all over, I would not be at all surprised if the palace, in conjunction with Parliament, don't decide to do something about the line of succession and kick Andrew off it. You know, there are still things like that can be done. This is a man who is still a Councillor of State, could still technically, theoretically, be signing legislation and standing in for the King if he were to be absent. So, you know, there's a few loose ends there, but we really have seen the last of Andrew Mountbatten-Windsor. You know, there is absolutely no coming back, and the King has made it abundantly clear today he will get no special treatment. And if things do get worse, well, you know, the monarchy will have to bear that. But I think people ultimately will understand that, you know, in every family, how you control a 66-year-old adult is sort of really down to them, not to the family.
Yeah. What about the public perception of the monarchy? How damaged Will that be by this?
Well, clearly, I think the polls will probably reflect a dip. It's reputationally, it is very bad. I mean, I think one of the differences between this crisis and ones that I've seen myself, particularly those back in the 90s, are that back then we didn't have social media, so we didn't have that sort of insistence on reaction to everything all the time. Things moved at a slower pace. So, people, I've heard today, lots of people say, why hasn't the king done more? Why what next? What can the monarchy do? I mean, the monarchy can't do anything while this legal process is ongoing, clearly. But I think what we are going to see coming down the track fairly soon is an end to this convention that the royal family can't be discussed in Parliament. I mean, that's been the convention for centuries. And a lot of MPs find that frustrating. I think this could be a sort of foot in the door on that. I think there'll be a lot of politicians, a lot of MPs who want to sort of get stuck in on this. Clearly, Republican elements are going to want to try and maximise this to try and cause optimum damage for the monarchy. So, I mean, it's a bad time. This, up until today, this has been a scandal. Today, it turned into a crisis, but it's one they will get through.
Look, 30 seconds. I mean, could it be well, you just say it's the one they'll get through. I mean, could it be the crisis that breaks the monarchy?
No, it really couldn't. It's a 1,000-year-old institution. I mean, let's be real about this. It's bad, but 1936. I mean, we're talking about an actual monarch being kicked off the throne. We've had the royal family forced to change its name in the middle of the First World War. These are all quite apart from the more recent scandals. No, it's not the end of the monarchy by any means, but it's going to require careful handling and a bumpy ride, no question.
Robert, good to talk to you. Thank you for coming on.
Thanks, Bob.
Right, Rhiannon is back with me. Robert Hardman saying, look, it's going to do a lot of damage. It's not going to threaten the monarchy, but how much damage do you think it does? Not least to the public perception of the royal family.
Look, it has significantly rattled them enough that they have issued statements and responded in a way that I haven't really seen when it comes to other major moments that I've covered. The swiftness with which we had the statement from the King today just showed that their usual, look, we're not just going to react, we're not just going to be bounced into saying something. They realised today they had to respond, and they've been very clearly saying, look, justice has to run its course, the investigation has to run its course, and we are more than happy to help with that. But yeah, it's the fact that this is a misconduct in a public office investigation that I think is just so hard for them to grapple here. We saw the King and the Queen again out today doing their duties, but ultimately you have one of the family being accused of potentially using and exploiting that position of power and privilege for their own personal gain and the gain of others. Of course, Andrew Mountbatten-Windsor denies any allegations that have been levelled against him. But yeah, I think what we have seen since October really is an institution where they've said, do you know what, we cannot stay silent on this anymore. And since October, we've repeatedly heard that message from them. We stand by the victims, we think of the victims. In the end, actually, this arrest hasn't come off the back of those serious allegations relating to the victims around Epstein. It's come from a different direction, but still, nonetheless, I'd say really damaging for the royal family, and because everyone's talking about this.
Yeah, and we've just heard Joshua Rosenberg earlier in the programme saying this could be a long I mean, this is not going to go away.
And that is what the King was hoping to kind of put a bit of a lid on last year in October when he took that ultimate action, stripping him of his titles, then stripping him of his home, no longer to be a prince, trying to shut down the noise, stop this all becoming a distraction. Those Epstein files, though, they have no control over those. They have no control over this scandal. And now, look, you have an investigation which is going to have to run its course, and that could take some time in terms of the police getting all the information that they need, including getting information out of that place there.
OK, Rhiannon, talk again before the end of the programme. Thank you very much indeed. Right, still to come on the UK tonight. We'll head across the Atlantic as Andrew's arrest prompts fresh calls for him to assist the US investigation into Jeffrey Epstein.
I'm Stuart Ramsey, and I'm Sky's chief correspondent.
An enormous explosion has just come down. I think it was a monster just landed in between us.
Hundreds and hundreds of people hoping to get north, ultimately to get to the United States.
It's a border where they're not welcome, yet they keep coming.
We saw snatch squads going in, grabbing people, taking them out and putting them into trucks and taking them away.
They make about 50 kilos of fentanyl a week. It's incredibly dangerous and toxic stuff.
There's been an upsurge in deaths. The fighting between the gangs is getting more and more vicious.
Is this now all your territory?
Yeah. The battlefield is outside the barricades, which is over there. This is much more like a normal town.
It's really sending a clear message that Venezuela is eager for change.
We've been crushed. Free from wherever you get your news. We are in the middle of a forest, in a jungle really, and they're attempting to keep these men alive. This is real, hardcore emergency medicine. The information on this could bring down the entire network, not just in Iraq and Syria, but across the world. Sky News, the full story first.
Well, hundreds of thousands of people have been using the beast for years to traverse Mexico, but it is really dangerous. Many people have died riding it.
What's the best thing about being a Sky News presenter?
We've done the work and the reading, so you don't have to.
Being a Sky News presenter.
Hello and welcome. Westminster, the heart of British politics.
I'm so sorry about what happened to you.
So what on earth is going on?
It's not true.
Can I tell you what I think? It's really unusual. Mornings with Roger and Frost. Let's crack on. Let's get started.
Now, the arrest of the former Prince Andrew on suspicion of misconduct in public office has sparked fresh calls for him to cooperate with authorities in the US who are investigating the crimes of Jeffrey Epstein. And one of the congressmen leading that investigation has told Sky News that officials are prepared to travel to the UK to speak to him. Suhas Subramaniam was speaking to our US correspondent, James Matthews.
I think this is a breakthrough. The reality is no one's been arrested in a position of power like he has and been held accountable the way he's being held accountable. And I think it shows that this investigation is fruitful and yielding some results. And the victims certainly are appreciative of the fact that law enforcement is willing to hold people accountable based on what's found in the files. That this isn't just an exercise in voyeurism and seeing who is involved and engaged with Jeffrey Epstein, that there's going to be real consequences. There's also real consequences for people who don't cooperate in our investigation. And so I applaud the arrest. I hope something will come of it. Most importantly, I hope that we get some answers because we haven't gotten any from him.
What do you think are the implications for your request for Andrew to come and give answers or take questions from the House Oversight Committee?
Well, he says he did nothing wrong and he committed no criminal activity or wrongdoing, which is fine. But if he wants to clear his name and his family's name, then he'll still come and cooperate with us.
Well, the family of Virginia Giuffre have also been giving their reaction to today's events. Andrew's arrest was not related to the allegations Virginia made against him, but her family say their hearts were lifted by the news nonetheless.
Sorry?
It feels like this surreal moment, a piece of justice that like Virginia has been fighting for this entire time. And I think we're just so proud. We're so proud. We're so freaking proud of our sister right now. We really wish she was here physically to see it, because it is her pressure and her truth that has brought us to this place, that has, you know, paved the way for all of these survivors to come forward. And so, you know, there's mixed emotions. We just miss her so much and wish that we could call her to just scream on the phone with her, you know.
The first step here has been taken by the UK, which is amazing. I think there's so much more that needs to be done here. I'm hoping they conduct a full investigation and there's a conviction of some sort. I think, you know, the thing that keeps resonating in my head is when my sister, you know, she famously said, and I'm just going to paraphrase this now, but like, they know what happened. We know what happened, and only one of us is telling the truth, and we know that's us. I hope that this is just the beginning, because I think there's a lot to be said. I think if you follow the money, you follow their position, you're going to start uncovering some really hard, dark truths very quickly.
Well, earlier I spoke to Amy Wallace, co-author of Virginia Giuffre's biography, Nobody's Child, and I asked her for her reaction to today's arrest.
I think it's historic. It's a historic shift, obviously, in your country. And it also validates everything Virginia Roberts Giuffre ever said about the scope of this conspiracy, both sex trafficking and an empire that was about money and power. And that's what Andrew has been arrested and is being investigated for, is that he traded secrets to Epstein. But it's just taking the lid off. And that's what's been needing to have happened, not just in the UK, obviously, but in my own country, where the kind of response that we were looking for is very slow in coming. So I applaud the British people for keeping the pressure on, and the British authorities for taking action. We have to be clear about what he is actually being investigated for. But Virginia's bravery and her willingness to speak out, and other survivors' willingness to speak out, has kept the pressure on. And it needs to stay on, in my opinion.
Yes, you're absolutely right. We do have to be careful and to make the distinction. But is your point that it was the Virginias of this world, the victims, the survivors, pushing and pushing for these files to be released that has led to what we're seeing now?
Absolutely. And yesterday, I'll just give you one example. Yesterday, congressmen and women in the United States heard testimony from Les Wexner. Who is Les Wexner? He's a businessman. He ran Victoria's Secret. He ran Abercrombie and Fitch. And he was a close friend of Jeffrey Epstein. He was listed as a co-conspirator with Epstein in the recently released tranche of files. And he was accused by Virginia Roberts Giuffre in a sworn deposition that has been made public of being one of the men she was trafficked to. He told those congressmen and women yesterday that he was never interviewed by the Department of Justice or by the FBI. So they can't even make time to interview a guy who's been accused. I don't know whether he's guilty or not, but they haven't even interviewed people on this side of the pond. They haven't even gone after the people who have been named. And so, yes, there's a lot unfolding here, but I think for anyone who cared about Virginia or any victim of sexual abuse of any kind, whether it was Epstein, Maxwell, or someone else, watching the testimony of these women be disregarded, ignored, and not acted upon by government officials who are supposed to uphold the law is an embarrassment. The UK has led the way. France is getting behind it. Norway is doing it. United States, not so far. So I think that there's a lot behind just seeing the prince arrested.
Amy Wallace speaking to me earlier. Rhiannon is still here for a final thought. It's been a busy day. Well, I mean, this is big news. It's global news.
Yep.
And you just have to look at the news crews here from all over the world.
You and I have been here before for more positive, upbeat stories and more difficult ones as well. the numbers of cameras and TV crews here is absolutely extraordinary, and it's been like this since I got here around midday. And that, in a way, just epitomises how difficult this is for the royal family and how hard this whole scandal has been more widely over the years for the royal family. Prince Andrew has been such a focal point of the whole discussions around Jeffrey Epstein and the entire scandal. And the world is watching. And the world is watching how the King and the monarchy respond to this moment. It is unprecedented. The pictures that we have seen today are absolutely shocking, whether it is Andrew in the back of the car leaving the police station, that look of a haunted man, really, an image that, as you said, is going to haunt the royal family more widely, but also the images of police picking over the Sandringham estate, the Windsor estate, trying to build up that wider investigation. And this is the trouble for the royal family. This is only the start of this investigation. It's going to run and run, but also, as we were hearing there from some of those interviews, there are also still calls for Andrew to speak to authorities over in America. And that could happen if the likes of the FBI approach the UK with a mutual legal assistance treaty and say, look, we want to talk to him. Yeah, he could be interviewed by police officers here, but the FBI could come and listen in. So look, this is a scandal that the royal family, despite every effort to try and get their grips around it, to try and say, look, we are on the front foot, we are responding, they have very little control. As also, remember, we are still picking through those Epstein files as well. Andrew Mountbatten-Windsor, though, has always denied any allegations against him, but this is just the start in terms of that investigation against him.
And in 10 seconds, what will be going through Charles's mind tonight?
Look, it's a family crisis. It is a crisis for the institution. In the end, it's the monarchy that comes first, and it's going to be his work making sure that he limits the reputational damage that really is going to be, I think, most pressing on their minds inside the palace tonight.
Rhianna, thank you very much indeed. And that is about it from Buckingham Palace. And, well, there's the scene behind me. Nighttime here, clearly the lights are on. They are absorbing this extraordinary news that Andrew was arrested this morning by police. He's being questioned all day tonight. He is back at Sandringham after the most momentous day.